Most people know roughly what's in their 401k. They know the balance. They know they're contributing. Maybe they know what funds they're in. What most people don't know, and what the statements aren't designed to make obvious, is what it costs to run those funds every year. That cost is called the expense ratio. It shows up as a tiny percentage, 0.03%, 0.50%, 1.0%, and it looks like a rounding error. Over a 40-year career, it is not a rounding error. Today we're going to run the math on what different expense ratios actually cost you, in real dollars over a real career, and show you exactly what you can do about it. I'm POW, this is the house math. Let's get into it. Let's start with a precise definition before we run any numbers. An expense ratio is the annual fee that a mutual fund or ETF charges to manage your money. It's expressed as a percentage of your investment, and it's deducted automatically every year, directly from your fund's returns. You never write a check for it. You never see a line item for it. It simply reduces your return before the number ever appears on your statement. A fund with a 1.0% expense ratio charges $10 per year for every $1,000 you have invested. As your balance grows, the fee grows with it. And unlike a flat fee, it also reduces the amount that compounds in future years. That compounding effect is what turns a small percentage into a large dollar amount over time. The range of expense ratios available to 401k investors can span from roughly 0.03%, the kind you'll find on broad index funds, to 1.0%, 1.5%, or higher on actively managed funds in many 401k plans. That gap, from 0.03% to 1.0%, is what we're going to run through the math on today. The reason expense ratios matter so much isn't the fee in any given year. It's the compounding effect over decades. Here's a straightforward way to think about it. Let's use a specific example throughout this video. $500 per month, $6,000 per year, contributed to a 401k starting at age 25. We'll run it to age 65, 40 years. Assumed gross return before fees, 7% per year. A commonly cited long-term historical average for a diversified equity portfolio. Returns are not guaranteed. This is a modeling assumption. Option A broad index fund with a 0.03% expense ratio. Net annual return after fees, approximately 6.97%. Option B, an actively managed fund with a 1.0% expense ratio. Net annual return after fees, approximately 6.0%. Same contribution, same years, same gross return assumption. The only difference, the fee. At 6.97% net return over 40 years, $6,000 per year grows to approximately $1,190,000. At 6.0% net return over 40 years, $6,000 per year grows to approximately $928,000. The fee difference between those two funds, less than 1 percentage point, costs approximately $262,000 over a 40-year career. On the same money, in the same account, making the same contributions every year. That is not a rounding error. If the math on low-cost index funds tends to look better in most long-term scenarios, why do many 401k plans still include high-cost, actively managed funds? A few reasons worth understanding. Reason 1, plan administration costs. 401k plans cost money to run. Record keeping, compliance, administration. In many plans, particularly at smaller employers, some of those costs are offset by revenue sharing from the fund companies whose funds are in the plan. Higher expense ratio funds can generate more revenue sharing. That revenue can effectively subsidize the plan's operating costs. The math works differently for the plan sponsor than it does for the individual participant. Reason 2, active management has a legitimate argument. Proponents of actively managed funds argue that skilled managers can outperform index funds by identifying mispriced securities, and that the fee is worth paying for that skill. The data on whether active management consistently delivers enough outperformance to justify the fee difference is debated. Studies from sources including S&P's SPIVA reports have tended to show that a majority of actively managed funds underperform their benchmark index over longer periods. though results vary by category, time period, and manager. Reason 3. Inertia and defaults. Many plan participants never change the default fund selection. Default options in some plans have historically included higher cost options. Regulatory pressure has pushed this toward lower cost defaults in recent years, but the landscape varies significantly by plan. S&P's SPIVA data has shown that in many categories over longer time horizons, 10 to 15 years or more, a majority of actively managed funds have tended to underperform their benchmark index after fees in many studies. That is a data point, not a guarantee about any specific fund. Most 401k participants have never looked up the expense ratios on their funds. Here's exactly how to do it. Method 1. Your plan's fund lineup page. Log into your 401k provider's website. Navigate to your investment options or fund lineup. Each fund should list its expense ratio, often labeled as net expense ratio, or annual fund operating expenses. Method 2. The fund's prospectus or fact sheet. Every fund is required to publish a prospectus. The expense ratio is required to be disclosed prominently. Fund fact sheets, typically a one-page summary, also list the expense ratio. Method 3. Morningstar or your fund provider's website. Search the fund's ticker symbol on morningstar.com. The expense ratio is listed under the fund's basic information. This is often the fastest lookup. Low-cost indicators, expense ratios in the range of 0.03% to 0.20% for broad index funds. These are commonly available in most large employer plans. Higher cost range, expense ratios of 0.50% and above. Worth running the math to understand the long-term dollar impact for your specific balance and timeline. Expense ratios are the most impactful ongoing fee for most investors, but they're not the only one worth knowing about. Administrative or record-keeping fees. Some plans charge a flat annual fee per participant, sometimes $20 to $50 per year, to cover plan administration costs. These show up on your statements and are relatively transparent. Investment advisory fees. If your plan includes a managed account option and where a service actively manages your allocation, there can be an additional layer of fees on top of the underlying fund expense ratios. These can sometimes run 0.30% to 0.50% additional per year. Front-end or back-end loads. Some funds charge a sales commission when you buy or sell shares. These are less common in 401k plans than in retail accounts, but worth checking for if your plan includes funds from certain providers. When expense ratios, administrative fees, and advisory fees stack together, total annual fee drag in some plans can approach or exceed 1.5% per year. At 1.5% annual drag on our $6,000 per year example, over 40 years at 7% gross return, the ending balance drops to approximately $810,000 versus $1,190,000 at 0.03%. That's a difference of roughly $380,000 on the same contributions over the same career. Step 1. Look up your current expense ratios. Use the methods from Section 4. Write down every fund you hold and its expense ratio. This takes about 15 minutes and is worth doing. Step 2. Identify the lowest cost options in your plan. Most large employer plans include at least one broad market index fund with a low expense ratio. Common options include S&P 500 index funds, total market index funds, and target date index funds. Step 3. Compare your current allocation to the low-cost options. If you're in a 1.0% fund when a 0.10% equivalent exists in your plan, run the long-term dollar math for your specific balance and timeline. The calculation is straightforward. Balance times fee. Difference times years. Remaining equals rough order of magnitude. Step 4. If your plan has no low-cost options, flag it. Employees have the right to request information about their plan's investment options and fees. The Department of Labor requires plan sponsors to provide fee disclosure documents annually. If your plan's options are uniformly high cost, That's information worth raising with your HR or benefits team. Administrative or record-keeping fees. Some plans charge a flat annual fee per participant, sometimes $20 to $50 per year, to cover plan administration costs. These show up on your statements and are relatively transparent. Investment advisory fees. If your plan includes a managed account option and where a service actively manages your allocation, there can be an additional layer of fees on top of the underlying fund expense ratios. These can sometimes run 0.30% to 0.50% additional per year. Front-end or back-end loads. Some funds charge a sales commission when you buy or sell shares. These are less common in 401k plans than in retail accounts, but worth checking for if your plan includes funds from certain providers. The fee doesn't feel like anything. It just quietly reduces what compounds. Over 40 years, that quiet reduction is one of the largest financial decisions most people never realize they're making. Here's where this lands. A 1% difference in annual fees on $6,000 per year over a 40-year career at a 7% gross return assumption works out to roughly $262,000 in ending balance difference. At one point, 5% total fee drag versus 0.03%. The difference in our model approaches $380,000. On the same money, same contributions, same time horizon. The math isn't a warning or a recommendation. It's just what compound interest does to a small annual percentage over 4 decades. Now you have the numbers. Next video, we step back from fees and look at one of the most misunderstood decisions in the 401k, how to actually allocate. What the target date fund is doing under the hood, and whether the default is the right fit for you. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm POW. This is the House Math. See you next week.